Hello, welcome back for episode 2. A couple of minutes after the first episode, I had a bit of a play around with some ways of expanding our basic mock-up we had. The first thing I wanted to expand it on was to use, not really to use, but to allow for parameters within the URL rather than just having our flat URLs that we had before, like the basics, sort of, it had to be exact. So firstly played around with just getting a single parameter work and how that might look. So this is pretty much the same, this start part, it's all pretty much the same. I added this other page, this user page, which you can see within this, the function that we're using has a parameter allowed for it of user. This is just basically a simple user page, so you could see someone's a user's profile, for instance. So basically it just says, hello, this is the user's profile page, and then link back to the home page. So basically how I did this is a little bit different by changing up sort of this function call here. So basically what I initially started out with was just using a sort of another query string parameter. So basically we have the page parameter, which is defined here, so we use that to determine which page the user is looking at, and then I thought using any other query string parameters we could just plug into those into the functions. So we could basically say here, it just says grab the parameters from the query string, and then basically we just remove the page parameter, which we know is set because it's up here. Well, we don't know it's set, but we know that we don't need it for the rest of the parameters because we use it for determining what the page is that the user is looking at. So basically we just test if it's there. If it's there, then we get rid of it. And then we use this function called call user func array, which basically allows us to call the method, which is in our router with the given parameter. So basically what this does is makes an array of the parameters and passes those on to the function. So say for example we had one parameter, we could add 2 or 3 different parameters, like for instance, and then we would expect to see a user parameter as well as an ID one, which works pretty fine. So basically, yeah, this allows us to basically do user equals, oh no, we need to define page, so do page equals user, and user equals, and we'll just say John, for instance. Probably should have tested this before starting recording. 2 seconds, I'll be right back. Alright, back again. Sorry, I wasn't being stupid. I just realised that I renamed the index page to index 1. So obviously I was actually visiting a blank index page, which is why nothing came up. So if we just put 1 there. There we go. So there we go. We got John's profile and the link back. I'll have to change all those links around, but yeah, you can see there's John's. Actually, what I'll do is I'll just rename it. I don't need, that's blank anyway, so just rename that one. Rename. Oh. Just overwrite this one. Yeah, go on then. There we go. So back to how we were before, but obviously now we can say page equals user, and there we go, user equals mark, there you go. So there's another one there. So that's how we could use a parameter in the query string to give us a bit of extra functionality there with the query string parameters. And that's pretty simple. Really the problem is with this approach, that means if I forget to put the parameter in there, we get obviously an error because that parameter isn't provided for that function which it requires. A way around that, we could just say put an equals null on the end, which would still allow the function to be called, but obviously then you've got a null value. I mean, you could always test for it, but it's starting to get a bit more, you'd have to start testing for every parameter, which then seems a bit pointless in the router functionality here. So this was the first thing I initially came up with, which is a quick mock-up of what we could do for the for different sort of parameters. That's what I was looking for, parameters. So a few extra parameters we could have in here, but this isn't really ideal. So moving on from that, just close that for instance. Went on to a bit of a different approach. So basically this approach uses us sort of pattern matching. So we use regular expression to determine if the parameters are required and everything else. I've done quite a bit of work on this. Well, I spent a good 5-10 minutes just making a couple of routes. So basically these first two are exactly the same as we had before, and this function here is similar to the user function we had before, and not that one because that's users. This one. So as you can see now, when I'm determining the route, I'm given this sort of regular expression type parameter here. So basically it's saying that if the page that's being requested is user hyphen and then any number of A to Z characters, then this will allow this function to run, which, because we know we've been provided with a parameter, this allows us to basically allow us to use these function parameters here without any too concern. And we know it's going to be there because as long as this matches, then we're going to have a parameter. Similarly for this one, this one's just a list, so I could easily click between them. But this is what I wanted to add on to. This also allows us to have multiples. So this is just a test search sort of thing. So we could say search for is the URL, and this could be the query string text, and then we could say page, and basically allow a page number. So this is just a simple regular expression to basically allow a 1 to 9 character on its own, and also any additional 0 to 9 characters. So basically just allows us to not have page equals 0 in our search results, but that's simple enough. So basically we're designing a little, rather than having a static string there, we just have a parameter. Well, it's not, not a parameter at all, it's a regular expression string to basically say this is our pattern that the page needs to resolve. So this is pretty much the same here, exactly the same. Added this other array that I was defining, which basically is the a list of resolved roots, basically. So basically what happens is all the patterns that get matched from these roots gets put into this array, and then we loop through each of the array and call the functions. So yeah, so you can see that here. So basically for each of the so yeah, I'll explain this actually, because we have to loop through the parameters now, because we can't just do like an is set like we had before, because obviously now they have patterns, and obviously the URL the users asked for is not going to match exactly these strings. I mean these ones will, which we can do some testing for in different ways, but just for now, this is basically we're just going to have to loop through all of them and test all the patterns. So obviously for these ones, this allows some dynamic parameters to be supplied. So basically for each of the roots, basically we grab the pattern, which is this string, and then we have the root, same as we did before. We just basically ensure that the pattern is an actual valid regular expression pattern by basically putting the delimiters and start and end strings, and this is just a case insensitive parameter, so that we can, so it doesn't matter if it uses caps locks or anything else, uppercase characters, sorry, against the pattern. And then basically if it matches, then we grab the matches. So these are the so trying to grab out these particular parameters. So obviously if it matches and there is no parameters, it will only have one result. Like these ones will only have one result in the match. So obviously the first match will always be the entire string that matches. So we know that we can just get rid of that one. So just erase shift that one, get it away, and then we just add this particular root and the parameters to the resolved. And then basically we test if there's any results in the resolved. Then we look through all the resolved ones to get the roots back, and then we just list out the function, which is the actual these closures here, and then we just call them with the match parameters. We could call that parameters or something like that, just to oh no, it's not there at all, it is there. So we have called it parameters. So we list out the function, which is the closure, and the parameters from the root that we defined here as an array, and then we just call it the same as we did before with function params. So I'll rename this one back to save the same problem as last time. Oh, just yeah, and then we just refresh. So yeah, so same as before. So we've still got the about page that comes back, and that still works. And then we've got the users list, which again is just another static page, but just gives us some quick links to some preset users. So there you go. So you can see in the address what I'd say is page user hyphen Mark, and you've got John, user hyphen John, Andrew, user hyphen Andrew, etc., etc. So you've got Kevin as well. Back to the home page, and this is our search test. So basically you can see there we've got search for, and then obviously test becomes our sort of the search text itself. The user's actually asking for searching, then page, and then the page number. So obviously if we go to previous pages, it's obviously going to be 0, which means our pattern won't match, because it must, the first number must be a 1 to 9, sorry. So obviously when this becomes 0, when we put the previous page in, it's going to come to the not found page, because obviously that pattern hasn't matched. But if we go back to and just go up the pages, next, so you see the numbers increasing, and we're able to match the pattern in the ruler. Simple as that. So I think that's more or less it for the mock-up. I think that's pretty much the way we will do things. So this way with the pattern match, and we'll work out some way of doing the sort of eliminating the need to pattern match these, which we can do sort of by defining this as a particular it's basically saying, if we say while we're defining this particular route that this is not going to have a pattern or any parameters, then we can eliminate the need for that. But yeah, that's sort of what I came up with. Not too bad, pretty simple. You could actually probably implement this or a very similar function in actual use, but it gets a little bit messy with a large number of routes. So yeah, but yeah. So next is basically to start design some classes to emulate this actual mock-up in some more practical form. So I'll basically get cracking with getting a file format of the file layout really of how I'm going to do this, and then we'll crack on. Okay, so I'll come up with a bit of a basic setup of how we're going to define our classes and how we're going to lay out them out. I'm not going to worry about how the file format and the folder structure of these are going to do. I'm just going to dump them right in the root there just for ease while we're developing. So basically we've got two main classes. It's going to be our root class, which will have obviously the roots in them, and our router class, which obviously will hold our roots, similarly to what we had before with our array, it being the router and these particular sort of closures and functions being the roots. And we've got a couple of others here. So pattern root, that'll be a way of defining that our root has a pattern like these ones, so that we know that we need to test for a pattern rather than just testing for a single string. The other one there is root group. So this will be a way of defining roots within another root. So basically, for example, we might have a way for a user to manage an account, for instance. So we might have /account is one root, and then inside that we might have a login, a logout, an edit account, that type of thing, change password, that sort of thing. But obviously, if the user's not accessing their account, then we don't want the rest of the roots to load up while we're looking at the account part. So we could a way of having a root inside this. We could do this with this example, for instance. We could have use router, for instance, and then we could basically say when this particular root's called, it would define another root within it with, I don't know, just test whatever equals another function, for instance. But obviously our current router is not designed to handle this type of function yet, but we'll have a look at that to try and get that involved. So we could basically have that. The other thing, I think it's the last thing, yeah, the last thing is a single root. So again, as you can see now for each, we have to test all the roots. So what this might do is if basically we encounter a match that's on a single root, then we know that, for instance, let's go with a for instance there. So say for example, we only ever know there's going to be one root for the home page. We could basically say this is a single root. So it means that once you hit a successful match on a single root, we don't need to test the rest of the roots. So we could have our home page first, and it could be the first match in our router, and then we know because it's a single root and there's only ever going to be one root for the home page, that we'll just have one particular. We can just stop there basically, rather than looking at all the other roots and doing any other sort of function or testing on any of the other roots to find out if there's another match. We could just basically stop it there, and then we're done. Save a bit of time and effort and energy really for the code, and that's pretty much it. Basically, I just wanted to sum up where we were from the end of the last time, just giving a bit of a further on example of where we got up to, and as well as where we're looking for. So that's going to be it for episode 2. If you do want to have a look at this particular code, the one with the pattern matches, the sort of our last mock-up, I'll put a link in the description where you can download the code. But that's it really. If you liked, leave a like rating, and if you want to keep watching, get subscribed, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.